Welcome to the Unofficial Steelers Podcast, the podcast so unofficial it doesn't have a home. Here's your host, from In Hindsight, Nathan Heintz. From Steelers Nation Australia, Mark Davidson. And from State of the Steelers, Daniel J. Here we go.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to State of the Steelers. Welcome to the Unofficial Steelers Podcast. The podcast so unofficial it doesn't have a home. It is the merry-go-round podcast that goes all the way around between our different channels. And today it lands on mine. I'm your host, Daniel J. And alongside with me, as always, Mark and Nate. Mark, how you doing? How was your Christmas?
It's pretty good, man. Of course, with the game too, it was even more special. But yeah, had breakfast with the family in the morning, and then it was my time from 12:30 p.m. to watch the Franco Harris game. But it was pretty awesome. Like the whole day was like a wild ride of emotions, and I ended up going to sleep like freaking like 7 p.m. I was like done. Like I was just up and down roller coaster of a game. Everything happening with Franco Harris. I was like, yeah, it was good overall, man, but it's been a pretty good few days as well. Although, one thing I don't like about what's going on now, we get so many damn tourists, like from Sydney coming down, up or down, coming up, right, from Sydney. And they're just freaking everywhere, man. Like, I just can't handle them. But other than that, I'm good.
It's warm season out there in Australia.
They're there to see you.
They're there to
not
see
here
you.
to see me, mate. They're here to buy beers and run around town. They're just so they walk slow. They drive inconsistently. They're just annoying.
Well, they're excited about the table still being alive. And so are we. Nathan, I hope you had a Merry Christmas. How was your weekend?
Yeah, it was a great Christmas, man. Couldn't really have asked for much better. And weather is freaking ass. That's for sure. Weather's freaking ass. I was a little sick. I sweated out before Christmas and got better. So my girlfriend has it, and I know. Sometimes when you're sick, it's kind of got the lasting effects, and you just feel tired, and it's just like, oh my god, you know what I mean? Like that's the point I'm at right now. But yeah, it was good Christmas. Hopefully you guys had a good one. Everybody in the chat did. Hopefully, sucks it's over because it's my favorite time of year. But anyway, the game though, game Christmas Eve, I was way off of my prediction. Pretty low game, not too eventful, as I should say, in the sense of it being a slobber knocker, but there's definitely some good things coming out of it.
For sure. And it was it definitely was an early Christmas present as the Pittsburgh Steelers beat the Las Vegas Raiders 13-10 in a game that, how can I put this, had historic aurora around it. They were going to be retiring Franco Harris's jersey. There was a lot of the energy and the atmosphere was electric. The emotion was high, and the Las Vegas Raiders drive down the field, score a touchdown, take 7 minutes off the clock. It started off pretty bad. In my opinion, it was probably maybe a little bit too much energy. You have a lot of pressure there. You have a lot of angst. You're expected to perform. Franco Harris had recently unexpectedly passed. This was supposed to be a celebration of his jersey retirement. It turned into not just that, but a celebration of his life. And, I was thinking at that point in the game, oh no, this is not going to be good. And fortunately for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and it's kind of been the MO of the defense where they will let a couple of drives get away from them, and then they put a lid on it. And that's kind of what we saw in this game, in my opinion. I think we saw, this was a hard-nosed football game, and a lot of it had to do with the temperature and the weather conditions that were out there. I believe it was the wind chill was in the negative double digits, from what I understand that night. How bad was the wind gusting? I know they brought it up a couple of times. The media stated it was 14-mile-per-hour wind. The announcer said it was gusting up to 30. Was it pretty windy out there, Nathan, in Pittsburgh?
It was definitely as cold as advertised. That's for sure. Now I'm just a little south of Pittsburgh, so
Okay.
the winds might have been a little different up there compared to here, and it was still kind of like you still had a little bit of the winds, but it probably during the game picked up more. I didn't really go outside during the night, but it definitely picked up more. And as we talk about the game, I will mention the wind factors and certain things that transpire in the game with the wind, and we'll get into that. But it was a game that I give credit to all those who went. Shout out to you guys, to everybody who went. Obviously was not sold out. You could see empty seats, and they weren't the only game. Cleveland's game wasn't sold out. There were another couple games that were that were super cold games that it wasn't sold out either. So it was just one of those things. Christmas Eve being number one. Number two, it's hard to see 65,000 people wanting to sit outside in that type of weather, watching that type of game. So
for sure.
Shout out to those that went though. I'm sure it was still kind of fun, but at the same time, I mean, my God, no thanks.
Yeah, for sure. And so let's get into some of the stats of this game. We'll start off with the quarterback and our opinions of his performance. Kenny Pickett was 26 of 39, 244 yards, 6.3 average, 1 TD, 1 interception. I know he wishes he had back. Wasn't sacked whatsoever. Had a QBR of 59.6 and a quarterback rating of 81.6. This was the elements. This was it only got colder as the game progressed, and yet he seemed to get hotter. What were y'all's opinions on the quarterback position? We'll start off with you, Mark.
I thought he played a pretty good game, and I think this is the game that if people are saying he's not playing, good quarterback play or whatever, or he's a bust, he's going to move on. I think you're watching the wrong game. To me, he went down the field at a 75-yard drive and won the game, and that pass to George Pickens was absolutely beautiful. It was like his spiral on the ball was fantastic, and he's getting better each week. But I think you can't put the whole thing on. I've seen numerous comments out there in YouTube land and stuff like, he's not the guy, he's not the franchise. But I'm not saying he is a franchise, but he's definitely getting better each week. And he won it for Franco, and he won the game. Like how much more do you want, And to me, it's the elements were involved too. It was windy, it was cold. The players didn't want to be out there. The fans didn't want to be out there, right? And he went and did the job. So either way, people would say he's still not the guy, but he won the game after a 75-yard drive, and I think it was fantastic. And look, if he goes and backs up against the Ravens with another hard game, but I think he's getting better each week. I didn't even know that he didn't get sacked. I thought he did get sacked once, but there you go. So he's not getting sacked, and that interception sucked too. It was like he didn't see the guy over the middle, and what they've all been saying is they want Steelers to throw the football over the middle, and GP was open, mate. It was good. I think it was kind of like. It could be a certain like turning point like this. We could see this next year, and do they score more points? And of course, they didn't score 30 points, but they still won the game in some bad conditions.
Oh, for sure. What about you, Nate? What were your thoughts on Kenny Pickett's performance and overall his play on the field this past weekend?
I don't really think he had. The Steelers scored. They had 3 points going into halftime. They had a few drives that were pretty good, and they came to a 4th down, 4th and 2, 4th and 3. And this is where I completely disagree with Mike Tomlin kicking the field goals. Why are you kicking field goals that are over 50 yards with this type of wind and this type of weather? It's just not going to happen. And Heintz Field is well known as being not a kicker-friendly football field. So the way that those drives were going that ended in field goals, I much would have rather have taken my chances going for it on 4th down than kicking the field goals and keep those drives going. I don't think his first half was that bad. He had some really nice passes to keep those drives going. Now, yes, they only had 3 points going to half, but still at that point, like those were still productive drives that they ended in field goals, and they missed 2 of those. I just don't agree with the decision to kick the field goals at that point in time. And with that type of weather, like I don't really know what you expect really. I think they would have had a much more successful opportunity to keep the drives going and then possibly be able to either one, get a closer field goal. Number two, you end in a touchdown. Now, if you don't get the fourth down, then it is what it is. But at the same time, it's the same result as missing the field goal. So I didn't mind his first half. I thought that he made some good plays on third down. I knew Freiermuth was going to get more involved. The third quarter, obviously he had the bad interception, and there wasn't really much going offensively. There wasn't it was just kind of stagnant. Defense kept on coming on the field. And then as you go into the fourth quarter, it's still kind of there. And then you have the game-winning drive, which it wasn't just a game-winning drive that that was carried by them running the ball, and then Kenny threw a touchdown. He made some pretty big passes twice to Pat Freiermuth on that game-winning drive. And then obviously the touchdown up the middle to Pickett and stuff like that. So I was pleased with it. I think it's something from a rookie quarterback that you love to see, a guy in that type of moment with under 2 minutes leading a type of drive like that and winning them the game. So that's probably the biggest takeaway from the game. There were some ups, there were a little bit of downs. It's the way it goes. But it's something that's you continually can build off of. And it's just too bad that those drives in the first half that they did a good job getting up the field had to end the way they did without any points. But that's been a problem all year. Yeah. That's been a problem all year long. Them getting up the field, having some successful drives, and either it ending in field goals or you're struggling in the red zone, whatever it is. And that's just going to be that's just been it all year. So that's something that's obviously got to get fixed. But I think at the end of the day, I think there's more positives to take away the negatives. And also as well, yeah, it wasn't an ideal weather condition. Kenny's just coming off his second concussion. If you want to call it a second concussion, I don't even know if he even had a concussion the first time. Right. That wasn't even revealed. So who knows if he even had a concussion the first time, but still, nonetheless, he had symptoms, stuff like that. And and they won the game. He had a great game-winning drive. Credit to the defense, which we'll get into. But I think it was just one of those things. There was some good. There were some things that were kind of stagnant, that nothing was really working. And then you have the great game-winning drive, which from a rookie quarterback, man, I mean, it's great to see.
Yeah, for sure. And JJ52 comes in with a super sticker for 99 cents. We appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you for super sticker, man.
Yeah, so my opinions on the game, I think there was a little bit of a misperception. When you watch the game initially, and I kind of felt that as well, you get that knee-jerk reaction when you see the Vegas Raiders drive down the field and you see them able to pass the ball early on in the game. You kind of get that feel that maybe perhaps our offense should be doing something similar. They should be able to drive down the field. They should be able to do those things. And you really don't take in consideration that in the beginning of this game, the defense was on the Pittsburgh Steelers side was trying to stop the run, and they were leaving some passes open down the field for some easier type of throws. And that's not what Kenny Pickett was facing. He said afterwards he was seeing a lot of too high safeties, and they were protecting against the pass. And so, you look at that, you take that drive out of it, and you just look at strictly the performance of Kenny Pickett. I think he did take a couple of steps forward. You look at that last drive, he was put in a situation similar to that against Miami. And in that situation, he threw 2 picks. In this situation, he drove down the field and he threw a touchdown to win the game. And so that is a next step forward in his development. I wasn't anticipating that this was going to be a game that was going to create a lot of points. And so, and that had to do with the weather conditions, not so much the talent or the players that are on the field. And so you can't really discount him for, only putting up, as an offense, 13 points when, that's what you anticipated them to get. You get what I'm saying? That's exactly what I predicted them to score. And so you can't discount it due to the fact that you have those elements there. And so, in my opinion, in this game here, I think he did take a couple of steps forward. You wanted to see him handle those situations, especially where the game's on the line. There's playoff implications. There's the pressure from Franco Harris' ceremony and the entire eyes of the world watching in a primetime game. and he stepped up and he was able to accomplish his goal. And so I think the next step forward in his progression is to get a couple of multiple TDs through the air in a game.
Right.
And hopefully he'll be able to do that this week. But overall, I think he did better. And given the the conditions, I think that I would give him probably a solid B on this performance, maybe an A- once you just factor in that last drive. I mean, that last drive was what you want to see out of your quarterback. As far as rushing, the Pittsburgh Steelers carried the ball 27 times for 106 yards, 3.9 average, 21-yard long. That 21-yard long came from Connor Hayward on a single rush to ice the game. Najee Harris was 16 of carries, 53 yards. Jalen Warren, 6 for 23 yards. Mark, what were your opinions and thoughts on the rushing game this game?
I thought it was like on both sides of football, it was pretty good at the start, right? You know, when they went down, the Raiders went down the field with Jacobs, and then we ended up stopping them too, by the way. But for the Steelers, I thought it was, pretty good going, right? Like I want to see those big plays from Connor Hayward maybe in the start, but that was a great play where, that's in the arsenal that can happen. Yeah, I saw that. Don't you worry about that, mate. If that was on my channel, you'd be blocked, mate. Easy. I don't think I have changed my hairstyle. I'm like, I don't know. Do I need to? I don't know.
We need to see the faux hawk as you go through the table, bro.
Oh yeah, and that table's still on point. I did agree to it. So
yeah,
and I'll tell you right now, it's not if they make the Super Bowl, if they win it. Like making it's that's not table worthy, but I'll do it for sure if they win it. Anyway, but when you look at it, right, like I think Najee had a good game. I think Jalen Warren had a good game, but I would like to see them play more, run the ball more. But they were kind of behind in the scoreboard too, so they had to throw it. So I don't know, and I think that the Raiders defense was playing good football as well. So what did Najee get? 53 yards and 23 yards. Yeah, it's not their best running performance, but the game to me is just a bit of an outlier depending on the conditions and the kind of, like you said, the emotion around it, right? And maybe they shouldn't have been throwing the football so much, but Kenny Pickett did enough to go out there and win the game. And it's just like, I don't know. I kind of want to see that running attack again where it is 45 times or 40 times, right? You know what I'm saying? Like Najee Harris running away. But this to me was the defense just really showed up as well. Big time.
For sure. What about you, Nate? What were your thoughts on the Steelers rushing attack?
Definitely wasn't. I was a little surprised that Kenny threw the ball as much as he did. I still think that they could have been pretty decisive throughout the game if they stuck more to Najee and Jalen Warren. I'm not going to complain. They won the game and everything. So I was kind of surprised that they didn't try to continue to play through that. And they had Kenny kind of come out throwing early and right away. So I was a little surprised by that. But I think that even though the running game, them with Harris and Warren, that it wasn't really quite as utilized the way that it has in recent weeks. Honestly, man, you're set. Najee Harris and Jalen Warren are your two running backs going forward. They offset each other very well, man. Jalen Warren is fast. He fights for the extra yard. He can block. Najee Harris, they used him a little bit more when they were passing the ball, which is good to see because Najee Harris can catch the ball. I mean, he's had some moments over the last 2 years too doing that, but he can still catch the ball. I don't have any concerns about him anymore, man. And I know we this was a conversation middle part of the season with him running and stuff like that, and I know people were calling for them to sit him down, stuff like that. I know that Daniel and I, we both believe in him. I'm pretty sure Mark still had faith in Najee Harris to turn things around. Obviously, he wasn't healthy. His foot was bothering him. He was in his head. And really, since the bye week, he's been back to that runner that we know him as. He uses his body. He's physical. He's not jumping and dancing around or anything like that anymore. And you're seeing how much more productive that he's being. So even though they didn't really utilize them necessarily in the way they have in recent games, I still think that they're still a good duo to have going forward. And hey, their game plan was to pass and Sure, it wasn't a scoreboard lighting up thing, but again, like they left some points on the board. They had some productive drives in the first half, but we've been seeing that all year, where those points are left on the board. There's, you're leaving out the touchdowns, and we know that's something that's got to change going into next year. Obviously, you can't have a red zone offense the way they've had it this year, but nonetheless, yeah, I was a little surprised they came out early though, throwing the ball. So with the Ravens, I know we'll talk more about it Saturday, but I don't know. We'll see what direction they go with. I don't know.
For sure. And for me, I thought that the running game was complementary to what they were wanting to do with the passing game.
Yeah, for agency.
It appeared that the Vegas Raiders were trying to stop their running attack. Since the bye week, the Steelers have really turned it up when it comes to the rushing game, and I think the Raiders came in knowing that and planned for that, and so could be why they were kind of passing the ball a little bit more early on. But I think they did a fantastic job. I want to see Connor Hayward carry the ball a little bit more. Maybe perhaps limit Derek Watt's rushes, put in Connor Hayward in those situations. I think that he did fantastic with the ball in his hand. He's known to be a guy that can make some moves and get down the field with the ball in his hand. And so, I would like to see Connor Hayward get the ball more. We'll go to the receiving. So receiving, we had Pat Freiermuth, who went from not getting a single. And thank you very much, Zach, with that $4.99 super chat. We
appreciate it. Z, how about use that money toward getting Manu an actual ring?
And so,
well, we appreciate it, Z. We appreciate it. Enjoy Disney.
Yes, sir. And so, receiving the Pittsburgh Steelers, Pat Freiermuth had 7 receptions. He had the most for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Coming off of a week where he didn't get 1 target, he ended up getting 8 in this game. A lot of that last week's non-target stuff had to do with a foot injury. In this game, he leads the team with 7 receptions, 66 yards, 9.4 average. He had 1 drop. I think it was an early on that led to a field goal attempt that Kenny Pickett was moving around, hit him in the hands. He should have caught it. I'm sure he wants it back. Deontay Johnson, he had 7 targets, 5 receptions, 64 yards. He also had a drop. That was pretty important on the 3rd down. George Pickens, 5 targets, 5 receptions. That guy just catches everything you throw his direction.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, he needs to get the ball thrown to him significantly more.
He should be getting about 8 targets at least a game.
I agree 100%.
At least.
Najee Harris had 6 for 42 yards. So he may not have gotten the rushing yards. He had 53, but when you look at what he was able to do total, man, he's still got 95 yards of total production. And so I think he did fairly well. No sacks. Remember, I think this offensive passing game was doing fairly well. We'll start off with you, Nate. What is your thoughts on the passing game and the receivers in this game?
I'm pretty sure Freiermuth leads the team in receiving yards, doesn't he?
I think so.
Does he really as a tight end?
Sure he does. I'm pretty sure he leads the team in receiving yards.
Find that out.
No, Deontay does. DJ.
Still Deontay? Okay. It can't be that far of separation.
100 yards.
Okay. Yeah. So all 3, Freiermuth, Pickens, appreciate that Z for the super sticker, brother.
Thank you so much.
Freiermuth, Johnson, and Pickens, all 3 of them. You're seeing this type of production. That's honestly kind of what you want week to week. Now, Pickens definitely needs more targets. We all know that. Pat Freiermuth, to me, it seems like he's Kenny Pickett's favorite target right now. And Pat Freiermuth is, I know that a lot of people, when they took him in the 2nd round last year, they wanted an offensive lineman, which I understand. But you're really starting to see how big of a pick he was. They needed a tight end desperately. Darius Green didn't work out. Jesse James, give me a break. Xavier Grimble, give me a break. Vance McDonald, he was all right, but he wasn't a long-term answer. Pat Freiermuth's a guy that's a long-term answer. He can block as well. Now, he definitely needs to get more. He has some drops too. He has some drop problems himself. He does. But looking at your young quarterback being able to get this type of connection with his tight end, with his wide receivers, is going to go a long way. And this is why I'm honestly an advocate for keeping Deontay Johnson. And when you look at the last few games, Deontay had a big game last week. Freiermuth had a pretty big game this week. Pickens and Johnson both had productive days, but you're seeing it's one of those things. It takes time, right? Like this is a whole new quarterback, and this quarterback's playing with all new guys he's never played with before throughout the year, and it takes time to really mesh that together and figure out what type of offense, what type of plays work in terms of who you want to get the ball, right? Who's the hot route, who's this, who's that, and really being able to get in that chemistry. It's easy for a fan to sit back and say, oh, okay, we got a new quarterback and he's got all these weapons to work with, right? Like, okay, yeah, that is, but at the same time, like you have to put that all together, and it's week at a time, week by week, you're seeing more of that come together. Now, offensively, they only scored 13 points. But we've looked at how many times they've broken over 20 points over in recent weeks when early on in the year they were failing to do that. So it's those type of things that are really important, especially when you have a lot of youth on offense. So I like seeing the way that Freiermuth is with Kenny Pickett and the way that he is integrated offensively. It was nice to see, again, they went more pass heavy this game, and you saw more Najee Harris involved in that aspect, which is fine too. And Johnson is 6 receptions, 64 yards. Pickens had a touchdown, stuff like that. So I think it was a good culmination of everything. But again, there were points left on the table, and those are things you have to keep getting better at. But it's one of those things, like, you got to give your young quarterback time to be able to work with everybody. And that's why those three guys going into next season as well, like, keep them together, man. Keep them together. You have to continue to keep what you're trying to build close-knit together, and not, you can't just throw this guy in there, throw this guy in there, throw that guy in there, and stuff like that. You have to let that gel. And each week, at least over the last 4 weeks, I feel like we're seeing more of that continue to cultivate. And that's why we've been seeing too, I think, why we've been seeing the offense score over 20 points, at least more times than not since the bye week, which is a great thing. So I'm okay with that. Pickens definitely needs more catches. Hopefully Deontay maybe gets a touchdown. Freiermuth's growth from year 1 to year 2 has been a good thing to see. But they have a good young core. They have a good young core of offense, and you need to continue to keep those guys together and continue to flourish that. Whatever you got to add, you can add. If you want to add another receiver in free agency, blah, 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 you can do that. But I think that there's been more good than there has been bad in the sense of seeing production from those guys. And we know George Pickens' frustration, stuff like that, over the last couple weeks, and he had a pretty good game this week. But it's just really important to keep that mesh together, for them to keep on working on that, because the Steelers could add freaking a great wide receiver in the offseason, but still, like, you need to have that cultivate together. That's not just something that's just gonna happen. And now we've been seeing things like this continue to kind of get better with everybody and stuff like that. So I'll be interested to see what they decide to do with the Ravens. But I'm pleased with it. Not everybody's gonna have a good big game, right? Not everybody's gonna have a big game. Not every top receiver has a big game or anything like that. But when you have reliable guys, and when you have good talent there, that's the best thing that you could have, right? Like Deontay could have a big game one week, Pat could have a big game the next week, right? Or you could have something like this where it's just a good overall balance. And that's kind of what it seemed like it was this game. You just got to turn those points into touchdowns. But still, at the end of the day, I think everybody had a pretty good performance in terms of offensive production.
I do too. And to answer your question, Brian Brown, Tua's backup is Tyrod Taylor. So he did okay in his replacement, but I don't think he won very many games earlier this year. Mark, what are your thoughts on the pass catchers before we go to the defense?
I think we need to trade George Pickens for Hunter Renfrow. I thought Hunter Renfrow's got great separation. I think he really teared us apart. And I think you get rid of Pickens now, he's a good value. You know what's going to happen. There are some sites out there that after a good season they go, let's trade George Pickens. They're like, no, you keep your best players. I'm really impressed, but you just got to let things, work itself out. Like a lot of people were on Deontay Johnson. A lot of people were saying, I wish we traded Deontay and not Claypool. Claypool stinks, man. And then we all know that I can't stand that bloke because he's an awful receiver. Why would you want to get rid of Deontay the way he's been playing now? 15 catches in 2 games, and the separation he gets off the cornerbacks. He's one of the best route running receivers in the game, and one of the best route running guys in the Steelers right now. Linking up with Trubisky last week, now linking up with Kenny Pickett. And if he can be the guy that can work into next season and bring back Austin, then we have what? Pickens, Deontay, Austin. If you keep all those guys together, maybe you keep Sims for a year and you kind of build around that. Connor Hayward needs more targets too, I think, as well. I think he needs to be in the offense 3 or 4 or 5 times at least a match, you know. Frymouth is in there too. We don't really see Gentry used that much as a receiver, so put Connor Hayward in there. But everyone was so down on DJ. But now it's like, oh, we're quiet again on that because it is that reactionary league. And I fall victim to that too. I was in the Matt Canada hate train. I was stoking the coal for that. I was up front. I was getting Matt Canada's bags ready for the airport for sure. And I'm not saying that he's going to stick around either, Matt Canada. I wouldn't mind seeing a change or whatever happens there. But the offense is definitely getting better. You can see it getting better each and every week. And this week they went more to the pass. But to me, Marcus Allen, boy.
He's a guy we need, man.
He has to be done right. This injury for him has to be done. Surely he won't come back now. So
I don't know, man. I put it in the Slack chat and Slack channel on Behind the Steel Curtain. When they put that he was going out with the surgery, I was like, hey, our 4th and long punts are safe now. Because he won't be on the field.
But you know what? Like, you can see the Kenny Pickett progression in the way he breaks out of the pocket when he needs to. He can run. There's a few times that I thought he was going to run with the football, but they end up passing it to move, like getting out of there, throwing football down the field. So I think the receivers now are playing that scurry mode too. When he does break away, they're coming back to the football, like Muth, like DJ. And of course, it is the ebb and flow season where you don't want to see it, but you could see DJ go and drop 3 footballs next week because he is inconsistent, but he has gotten better over the last few weeks. I thought this game was good on that account. I think actually, man, like even looking at George Pickens, I'm not going to trade him away for Hunter Renfrow, but GP, he's like body type, man, so young of a dude. He looks like to me like a bigger physical, more Martavius Bryant, right? He's just so tall. He's so tall and he's like has that stature. So he's going to be one to be recognized with. And I think if he controls his ego, not to do too many silly things, and just play some good football and just go and do the play and don't muck up too much on the field where you're getting involved like Marcus Allen does, or when he got that penalty where he jumped on the guy's head at the onside kick. I think this receiving group can start to make some noise because we have the all pro that is like Muth and these guys there, but. I'm excited, man. Like I think this team can do something next year. I think with the pieces, if they build around the offensive line, stuff like that, or bring some guys in. But shout out to DJ Man too, guy. I think he's been given so much slack, and he sees it. He sees the YouTube comments. You can't avoid it if you're a superstar. Like you got to go through Facebook once every now and you say, oh, DJ sucks. He's played well over the last few weeks, but you guys are right. Get the ball to GP and things will happen because he can catch anything up here. Got it.
Yeah,
get some ball.
And DJ's been in the live chat. I've seen him before. He watches our stuff, so you should too. So hit the subscribe button and ring that like. And so, I think when it comes to George Pickens, I think he's going to be a stud, y'all. This is going to be a guy that's going to be a guy for the Pittsburgh Steelers, a weapon for a long time. You know, he reminds me of Randy Moss with his ability to catch the ball away from his body, to go up and moss people, to get it around anyone. And then his body control reminds me of Antonio Brown, how he's able to keep his feet in bounds and things of that nature. Maybe not the route running specialist that Antonio Brown was, but the body control specialist that he was. And so, I see those two tendencies or attributes in his game. And I think that he's going to be fantastic. He is a guy that, I've said it before that the Steelers need to treat him like the Vikings used to treat Randy Moss, and 70% of the passing plays need to be, looked at his direction first, and then go off of that, because this guy he doesn't need to be open to make a play, and we've seen that he's phenomenal. That last touchdown pass that he caught was probably one of the easiest ones that he's had to catch. That ball was absolutely on the money, on the mark. And Kenny Pickett did exactly what he needed to do by holding the safety, by looking him off. And those are things that you want to see, that progression when it comes to not just the quarterback, but this offense in general. They're starting to understand it. You know, Kenny Pickett said after the game that he saw the look and he got the look that he had seen in practice, and it was familiar to him, especially in that moment. And
Right.
in my opinion, that means that the entire team is starting to gel. There was some comments made by Steve Smith, and we saw them in here earlier, where he said that the Steelers offense was playing a Saturday game on Sunday, right? Basically stating that they're using a college game plan to play an NFL team. I understand it, and I get that. This team has been very slow progressing when it comes to opening up this offense. Some of that could be on the coordinator. Some of that could have been just basically on the execution, and the team needs to kind of get things together before they can move forward. In this game, however, I felt that the Steelers were playing a game plan that had a lot of checkdowns in it for a quick checkdown to protect Kenny Pickett. He was just coming off of a concussion protocol. He was wearing a different helmet because of it to protect him. I think the Steelers' game plan in this game was to protect him. And you look at the fact that they ran the ball, I think, every time on first down. I don't think they had a first down pass throughout the game. That also kind of tells me that they were, until they got into that last drive. Once they got into the last drive and they needed to go down the field, that was a different story. But for the majority of the game, they ran the ball initially on first down. And, I thought that was to protect him. We'll start off with you, Nate. What were your thoughts? And then we'll wrap up the offense on the offensive coordinator and the game plan that was put in.
Yeah, it seemed safe. It seemed kind of conservative. There wasn't there wasn't anything that there was no type of deep threat in this game, and not that they've had that really this year anyway, but from really recent games, from what we've seen the last few weeks to now, it definitely seemed a little different, because when you look at Deontay's route tree that he ran last, whatever game it was, he had 10 catches. And you look at kind of what they've done the other night, it definitely was a different game plan. And it could have been because of the Kenny situation, could have been because of weather, things like that. But it seems like more people than not around the league recognize that Matt Canada just isn't an NFL cut caliber type of offensive coordinator. And you know what? It's okay to not be. He maybe is just suited for a different area of football than the big leagues. And that's okay. I'm still not a fan. I still think it's too conservative for me. It's too repetitive for me. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to give him credit when things work, right? I'm not going to give him credit when there's, even if things are called and they're not executed right or they're missed and stuff like that. But I see what Steve Smith is saying. And it's something that we saw last year, something we've seen this year. And at least just from this game, though, it definitely was a little conservative. It was a little bit. There wasn't really many chances down the field, or really many opportunities down the field. So it is what it is. Like, he's not really saying anything new than what Steeler fans already know and what they've been accustomed to. But it's just one of those things of where I still think Canada's going to be gone. I still think they're going to go in a different direction. And it's just like he's really just reiterating what everybody else, what at least most Steeler fans have been saying for the last 2 years. And it's just a little bit of the reality of it. And it, like I said, it's honestly like the same things when you have a head coach in the NFL that was a very successful offense or defensive coordinator somewhere else, and they just don't cut it as a head coach. Like, stay in your lane, right? Stay in your lane, stay in what you're good at. And with Matt Canada, okay, like, you're not really cutting it much of an offensive coordinator. You're not getting enough done, right? So go to where you thrive at and where you succeed at. And you see here, you're not. Go over here. And there's nothing wrong with that. So he's not saying anything different. He's not saying anything different at all. But yeah, it was the game plan. It was soft. It was conservative. I understand with the weather. That's why I was surprised they passed it as much as they did. I definitely thought that they were going to try to run more, try to play through Harris and Jalen Warren more. But they still they still made some plays happen. There were still some good drives there. Like I said, there were a few good drives in the first half that they left points on the board, and it is what it is. It is what it is. But that's just something in the offseason, whatever direction they decide to go. We all know their red zone offense needs to get so much better because it's been dreadful.
Yeah, no, the red zone offense has been horrible. What about you, Mark? What are your thoughts on the offensive game plan?
I think it's a bit like what Steve Smith said, right? I think he said it was like it's inconsistent because sometimes you see the bad play, the bad screens that don't do anything, or the receiver screens that go nowhere, and then you'll see a Connor Hayward run that goes 21 yards and like to end the game, which is awesome. But why won't you say at the start? At the same time, like I've been on Matt Canada a lot, but when you think about it, 2 weeks back he had a 21-yard, 21-play drive. That was the longest, I think, drive since like 2004. So he's just so inconsistent. Like at the start of the year, goes 3 and out, and goes nowhere. And then he's slowly gotten better. And if that is either it's play calling or if it's execution with the players, if it's quarterback play, if it's the team getting better, which I think the team overall is getting better from the start of the year. And that's why we're in the position now that we have a chance for the playoffs, right? But you go from the inconsistency of Matt Canada to having a 21-play drive, and the time possession has been fantastic. Since the bye, it's been a whole different team, right? We're averaging 35 minutes or 33 minutes a game. So I don't know if they're going to move on from him because Steelers don't really do that. But from my fan perspective, I just want to see this team be the best that they can. Maybe that's what Steve Smith's trying to allude. Like all the talented players, Pickens, Deontay Johnson, the route running he does, even Steven Sims, to example, Fryermuth, Connor Hayward, these guys in this offense, and Kenny Pickett's a young quarterback, Calvin Austin coming back into the mix. This can be special. So maybe you need to get someone who can match the talent, who can excite them and really push you at the edge and go and score 21 points a game, 25. And if you are looking at the points per game, it's not the best. Like the 13 wasn't the best, but the game was pretty windy and whatnot and pretty terrible. But overall, the season, I think this is the worst average I think Matt Canada's had in his 2-year career. Was like it's like 17 points a game or something like that. So they might make a choice, but Steve Smith's right. It's just inconsistent. You just don't know what you're going to expect. One time you get a good play, the next time you get 3 bad ones in a row. You don't know what to expect. But it's a chicken and the egg, isn't it? Really, you just like Kenny Pickett's playing better, and the quarterback play was better with Trubisky last week too when he threw some duck eggs with the interceptions. The running game, they've been running more physical. Warren's getting more involved. Snell turned up, So everyone's playing much better, and maybe just did take time for it to gel. And like you said a few weeks ago, Daniel, if you change it now, then what's going to happen? If you change a coordinator, then you got to start fresh, right? So there's a lot of things to it, but it's just one of those ones where I think, like for me, I was really overreacting. Like, want to fire the guy 110%. But if they move on, I'm okay. Get someone else in. Like if they get someone who's experienced, and I couldn't even tell you who's a good offensive coordinator, but someone comes in who's got the credentials and they can fire up this team to get 25 points a game, then we're going to be scary, man. Because this defense is playing lights out too. They didn't allow any points, 0 points in the half, but we only scored 3 or something, or 7 points in the half.
Yeah, and Matt Canada's playbook is limited. It is limited when you see a lot of repetitiveness, when teams know, when teams know plays that are going to happen, and sure, even if it's executed, the defense might have a hard time stopping it. But still, it's a limited playbook. It's a playbook that isn't, to me, it's a playbook that isn't up to date with modern day NFL offense. And in today's NFL, you need to score points. Now, sure, can you win games that are low scoring? Of course you can. But in the grand scheme of things, with today's league, it's an offensive league. Championships, defenses don't win championships anymore in today's NFL. Now, do you want a good defense? Of course you do. But offensively, you need to be able to score consistently over 20 points to be able to win. And that's what the Steelers wanted this year. They wanted defense to win them games. They wanted to win between 14 to 17 points a game with Mitch, and it didn't work out. And that's just not the way the NFL is anymore. They operated as if it's 2005, and it's not. And so you have to really, with the way they've been playing the second half, they've been playing a lot better the second half. And I've said it on this podcast and on mine, regardless how the season finishes, I want them to have a strong second half and take that into next year. And Daniel, you even said too, if the Steelers finish with a top 5 pick, we know a lot went wrong. If they don't finish with a top 5 pick, if they finish outside the top 10, we know things got better and things are starting to get right. And we're seeing that. They have the 16th overall pick right now in the draft. Now that will change depending on if they win more games or if they lose. But I like what I've been seeing this second half. We've been seeing the defense play better. The defense was very bad the first half. Sure, TJ didn't play, but still, it was still very bad. The second half, we're seeing the defense come together more. We're seeing some more turnovers. We're seeing some more pressure on the quarterbacks that we haven't seen, that we saw without TJ. We're seeing Kenny make steps every week. We saw an offense that was finally breaking over 20 points in consecutive weeks. We see a running game that's finally taking off. That's been taking off the last month, 5 weeks. That's a great thing to see. And it's a team with youth. But you have to, at the same time, yes, these guys have to gel and mesh together. And with Matt Canada, we know, Daniel, too, you mentioned how guys have to continue to do this and do that before you take that next step. But the question is, like, is there ultimately a next step with Matt Canada? I really don't know. Because what we've seen really all year, it's nothing groundbreaking. Sure, there's plays that have worked. There's a lot of plays that haven't worked. But it just feels the same. You know what I mean? It feels the same. It feels status quo. Like it's an offense that it's still just not quite breaking through the way you want to. At the same time, it's still young though, right? It's still young, and you got to kind of let it nourish. But so I'll be interested to see if they're going to keep Canada another year around, or if they're going to decide to go in a different direction. But one thing I want to mention, I saw this tweet earlier. One thing I want to mention. If you look back at these games this year, Jets, Patriots, Miami, they lost 16-10 against Miami, and the Baltimore game, those 4 games. If they win 2 of those, and all those games were pretty much managed by 3 points or less, except the Miami game, pretty much. If you win 2 of those games, you're sitting at 9-6. If the Steelers manage to beat the Jets and let's say that Ravens game last week, they're sitting at 9-6. They're sitting at a playoff spot. That's why I said early on it was so important the first 4 games to start off hot. And they went 1-3. So I saw that, and that same tweet said the Steelers are still alive technically. They're 7-8, especially after starting 2-6 or whatever they started. The season they're having this year is a down year. But this is a type of down year the Steelers are having that many teams are freaking clawing for.
Would love
For a good season. You see what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
So if this is the Steelers' down year, missing the playoffs by 1 or 2 games, I mean, you can really, if you have an aggressive offseason this year, and I've been saying it, you can find yourself back on track. Now, am I saying Super Bowl contender? No. But you can find yourself back in winning more games than you did this year. You can find yourself back in competing in the AFC North.
For sure.
They're a team that is young and has youth. They have a lot of talent on defense as well. Now, they got to get better in certain areas, but those are all things that they can grow in the offseason. Those are decisions they can make in the offseason. But still, I just kind of thought that was a good perspective, where the Steelers' down season this year, so far at 7-8, is the teams clawing to have a good year. Like, that's teams that are wanting to have a good year. So
we'd be winning the AFC South. So this is why I think sometimes.
But you see, if they win 2 out of those 4 games that were all 4 of those were close, very close games, they could have won. They're sitting at 9-6.
Yeah, and this is their quote unquote, or some people call it rebuilding. I don't think it's rebuilding. It's just their retooling year, whatever it is, right? It's the year post Big Ben, and that's okay. It's okay what we've done. Like, to me, it is not a bad thing where we sit here with a chance for 6 games to go our way to go to the playoffs. It's not a bad thing to end the year this year. If they beat the Ravens, they beat the Browns. It's not a bad thing to improve yourself to get the higher draft pick and have a chance of the playoffs and have a winning mentality into the next year. It's not a bad thing at all.
That's
I don't
it. Like
understand it.
the people that wanted the Steelers to lose this year. Number one, you're not a fan. Number two, why do you want a team that's young and kind of growing something new now to just freaking lose? Like, you want them to win together. Sure, they might not be a playoff team right now, but you want them to win together. You want them to grow together. And like, I don't understand, like, why would you want a team to have that type of mentality to lose? Oh, wow, just so they get a better draft pick. Like, dude, like, if you're not a team that's quite where you want to be at or stuff, you still want to win. You still want to take that into the next season with that type of mentality to keep getting better and everything like that. And what we're seeing now is them being 7-8. They're not bad. They're decent, right? They're decent. They've had a pretty good second half. They've gotten better in quite a different areas. So regardless how the season finishes, you can take that in the offseason, make the changes that you got to make, and come back and build off of what you've done there. And that's a great thing that can possibly happen. So I don't know. I just kind of like that perspective as this is a team that you look at them this year, right? They were left for dead pretty much when they had 3 wins. They've had a good second half. They've kept themselves kind of alive in the race and everything like that. They got some good young talent. They have some established talent on defense still. And if they can play their cards right, have an aggressive offense or offseason, they can find themselves back. And yeah, Darwin, you do need talent to win. They have some talent. They have some nice young talent. They have some established guys. But that's why they need to have an offseason where they're a little aggressive, right? Where they maybe take a chance where Kevin Colbert, we know how Kevin Colbert was in free agency. Waited till the cookie crumbled, till the leaves fell, and then kind of made those things. You got to spend a little bit more money now. The cap's gone up. They can restructure contracts. The way they structured contracts in the offseason, you need that. So I'm excited I think they have a nice future ahead of them. I think they have a bright future.
I agree 100%. I think that they're moving in the right direction. And you're right. I had said it earlier, at the bye week, I said that the Steelers needed to show improvement. If not, there would be some significant concern if they were picking in the top 10. You mentioned it. Well, the Steelers right now are picking at 16. So they were at the top 10 at that time. And we're, I think, looking at the first pick, if I remember correctly, they were in contention for the first pick of the draft at that point. And so, this team has turned it around offensively with Matt Canada. It just appears that this team, the margin of error is very small. Like, the execution has to be pinpoint with this team because they don't get chunk plays. And I see that being a lack with this team. This team doesn't get chunk plays. They don't get they don't move the ball down the field with limited amount of plays. And so that needs to change. Now, if that's a coordinator thing, if he's just running things that are too safe or has these concepts that are designed to put you in a manageable third down and distance, well, if that's your goal, then you're going to have to do 21 plays to get down the field.
Yeah.
And that's not going to work in today's football game. And when you have a team as young as they are, that's too high of an expectation to expect a rookie quarterback, a rookie first-round receiver, a rookie receiver, second-year running back and tight end to be at that elite level so early in their career and dependent on other young and rookie players. That's not a formula for successful football. And when you see the amount of points that they've gotten on the scoreboard, it's kind of it matches that. You know what I'm saying? If you had a Ben Roethlisberger in his prime that understood the offense completely, and you had an Antonio Brown who's been in the team for a while, and you had those pieces there, then you could probably run this offense with more success because of the fact that you have some experienced players there. That's not the case here, and so they need to change it up. And if he's just if the expectation is somebody or a team that's going to be perfect and be able to move it up the field You're not going to get that. Not with this team, not with many teams. You need to be able to get some chunk plays. We'll talk briefly about the defense, and then we'll call it a show. The Steelers held Derek Carr 16 of 30 for only 174 yards, which majority, I think a lot of his yards came on the first drive. A 5.8 average. He had one touchdown and 3 interceptions, sacked 3 times. As far as his pass catchers go, Davante Adams had 2 receptions for 15 yards.
Yeah.
I think this defense played fantastic. And then you look at the rushing defense. Josh Jacobs, 15 carries, 44 yards.
Yeah.
Robert Spillane played 100% of the snaps. Do you think that there's a coincidence there? Is he the reason why? We'll start off with you, Mark.
Spillane game, man. He loves this kind of stuff. Like he's a gritty, dirty, like not dirty player, but in the trench kind of guy, physical guy. He loves his stuff. Remember the hit he had on Derrick Henry? Now I've also been on record too saying that we
took 10 years off his life, Mark.
Did it? Who Henry or Spillane?
Spillane.
Yeah, but like he had a game, man, and I'd rather see him in there than I think like he wants to tackle. He wants to get in there than I would rather see Devin Bush in there at the moment. So I thought he had a good game. I thought our defense showed up. I think like even you said Davante Adams had 2 catches and
2 catches.
That was James Pierre was guarding him most of the day. I think he's stepping up too into his role and he knows he's a bit maybe on the cut, maybe like that. I think there was a few times we saw some big plays down the field. Of course, Hunter Renfrow got open quite a few times, but football happened, right? But there was a few times where the player got up beyond the safety. Darren Waller, I think it was like went down the field for a big catch. But overall, the defense stepped up. Ogunjobi played well. Cameron Haywood had the game of his life. Like he said, you know what, we're going to win it for Franco.
Yeah, shout him.
He was MVP in my heart. Like that's his game. Arthur Millette made a great play on the ball. I think this defense can get it, and it's like they wanted to win that game for Franco, but I can see next year if we have some good piece on offense, scoring up, getting up by 20, 20 to 3 or 20 to 7 or something like that. Defense comes out and they can shut down some games because not allowing yet again no points in the second half. I think that's the second or third time happened this year is pretty fantastic. Like the only one drive that went down there to get a TD, it could have been 13-3 or could have been 19-3 or whatever. The defense showing up right now. Highsmith got a sack in there too. TJ's a bit quiet, and we all know he's quiet, right, because of the injury and that kind of stuff. And that's just what it is. He's not the same old self this year, and hopefully next year he's good. But the defense is playing some good football. The only worry for me is like the quarterbacks sometimes they look like they're out of position when they play in zone coverage, and they go down the field and get a sack, and it's like 3rd and 13. I think they got a 3rd and 16. I was like, how?
Yeah, they did.
3rd and 16. It's like, how?
The longer the third down, the likelier they're going to get it.
Can someone go ahead and do the stats? Like I said on my live stream, in the last 5 years, I've never seen it. Like they play so well on first down, second down, and then 3rd and like 14. It's like, you know what? Have it. And even some of the ones like they do a 3rd and 15, and they tackle them at the 4th and 1. You're like, what? How did you get so close? I don't know, but I think overall, keeping them to 0 points is a win, right? Cameron Sutton he flew like Superman. Arthur Millette got the interception. Who was the other interception? Minka?
It was Arthur Millette. It was Sutton, and it was oh gosh, who was it? Let me see.
Minka had the other one.
Was it Minka?
Yeah, Minka.
Yeah. So we've got 3 out of them, right? So, but it's frustrating. I think the third because first down we're okay. Get them to 2nd and 9 or whatever. TJ off the edge, get a sack, and then they're like 2nd and 16, 3rd and 16. It's like, okay, here's your first down.
Yeah.
They got to fix it up. Like, don't live in your fears. Go and blitz them or something. Like they seem to play so off every time they get in the 3rd downs. They seem to relax a little bit and they play hard in the first 2 downs.
For sure. And one thing I forgot to mention was Davante Adams had two catches for 15 yards, but he was targeted 9 times.
Yeah,
that
shut him down.
That is shut down city. What about you, Nathan? What were your thoughts and opinions on the defense here?
Here we go show. How you doing, man? Thanks for tuning in.
Yes,
guys, check out Devin's channel. Here we go show up there. He talks Steelers content as well. Yeah, I said before the game, I was just concerned about some big plays down the field because the Steelers were kind of giving them some up in recent games, and the Raiders have kind of been getting their offense rolling a little bit, and so I was just a little worried about some of the middle of the field with Darren Waller, Devontae Adams attacking some of the DBs the Steelers have. But you gotta give them credit. The defense was definitely lights out. They shut Devontae Adams down. They didn't really give up too many big plays, really. They got some sacks, couple. I know the last interception was at the end of the game, but still, I mean, there was 40 seconds left. But those other 2 turnovers, one by Millette, and then Minka being right there, those were still key turnovers at those point in the game. Even though I don't think the Steelers came out with any points from any of those. No. Still though, like those are still really key turnovers there, and they honestly played everybody well. Josh Jacobs, leading rusher in the league, only giving up 40 some yards to him, and really just having touch on. Really, it just seems like everybody, because the Raiders have been kind of exploiting the deep ball on offense lately, and the Steelers not really being burned by that. Only giving 2 catches up to Adams out of 9 times. You can't really ask much better. You really can't. And that's why the Steelers defense, when you look at what they've been doing, it's definitely encouraging seeing what they're doing right now, what they've done the second half, and what they can do to really add to that going into next year. It's definitely a great thing and what you want to see this year end on. But the year's not over yet. It's not over yet. And we'll see what happens. The Steelers could be eliminated by the time they play Sunday night, or they still could be alive and have a heartbeat. So that's going to be interesting. But yes, it wasn't a very eventful game, but sometimes just because a game's not eventful doesn't make it a good one. So I think really everybody appreciated the defense that came out, especially in that type of weather. And you have to, I mean, hats off to them. I was just scared of some of the long balls or some of the big plays given up down the field. And so it was really great to see them really contain some of those key players from the Raiders, when really we've seen in recent weeks that they've struggled a little bit in recent weeks with letting some guys get past them. But they were really they were tough knit defensively. That they really were, and it just shows you really what type of unit they can be defensively. And that's why I'm confident with them even after this season too, because they're still going to have those key guys there. Sure, they're going to have to make a couple moves. They're going to have to, bolster a couple, an area here, an area there. But they've been a type of defense. Last year, we know they struggled. Last year was a struggle. But they've been a defense in recent years, a Super Bowl caliber defense. They really have. The last 3-4 years, they really have. And they got something good there to continue that a little bit longer term. And so they got to be aggressive, got to play their cards right to kind of little add to a couple things. But definitely pleased all around. Definitely pleased all around by them. So I think we're going to see another one. I think we're going to see another good performance Sunday night.
For sure. I also want to, shout out Devin from the Here We Go show, and also my buddy Arsenal, the DB. These guys are also Steeler content creators. Both of those guys, go give them a shout and a comment and a subscribe. Let's see.
Tell Zach I listen by radio.
By radio.
Of course I get broadcasted. Why would I? Of course. Yeah. It's a good question.
Just watch the game at like 4 a.m.
Yeah. No, I listen by radio. I get everything by mail.
Get everything by mail.
Wait, also,
yeah. Darwin, that's one thing too. There's a plethora of guys on the defensive line in free agency that the Steelers could really add there. And I've mentioned Javon Hargrave would be
bring him back.
That would be an amazing
dream. Respect Jay Wobble. If he comes back, it'll be fantastic. The Steelers lead the league in interceptions.
Really? They also
17.
I think they're in the bottom of the league in fumble recoveries. Ain't that weird though? But you know what? If you rather lead in one of them and be, failing in the other, I would rather be leading in interceptions. I think, in my opinion, those are bigger plays in those bigger moments. Final words before we let everybody go. Steelers won. Their playoff hopes are still alive. Mark's table is getting ready to be used.
It's getting ready, mate.
It's getting ready. He's gonna jump.
I hope they make it just for that reason,
dude.
No, it's win. I'm not doing make it. Make it. No, I'm doing win. Like they have to win.
They got to win the whole thing.
I'll say win. if the Steelers win the Super Bowl in 2022, 2023, I will jump through a table. It's now because now it's a thing. So that's the 1% shot. But if it happens, fuck it, I'll do it. I'll have to figure it out.
You'll go viral real quick, especially if you don't go through the table. Let's just say you land on it,
bounce off.
You just bounce.
Oh, I'm thinking, where do I buy a table? Where do I do it? Should I do it outside? Do I put stuff underneath? Because look, we have 6 games to go. 6 games if the Steelers go 6 games goes our way. Actually, wait a minute. How many games can this? If you're a wild card team, you have to win 4 games, right, to make the playoffs, to make the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Well, to win you'd have to win 3 in the playoffs, and then the 4th one would be the Super Bowl.
So there are 10 games, 10 results go our way. I'm going through a table. That's scary. That is kind of scary.
That's a 10 parlay.
Oh boy.
I think that this team's they're moving in the right direction. I saw some things that perked my attention, out of this game, especially offensively, especially coming from the quarterback. That last drive really was really something I wanted to see. I've been mentioning it before. I wanted to see him throw the ball down the field and give somebody an opportunity to run with it. Now, for instance, George Pickens in that situation, had he not been in the end zone, he would have been running for the end zone. And so, that was just a dime, and the way he looked off the safety, and I'm starting to come around a little bit more. But I had said this before. I told you guys earlier at the bye week, I said the Steelers go 5-4. That's exactly what I want to see. The Steelers have already won 5 games since the bye week. And so they've done what I was hoping not so much their ceiling was, but what they could potentially be as far as going into it. What I thought was realistic. They're surpassing that, in my opinion. And so that just leads me to believe that this team is improving and they're developing at an adequate pace. The 13 points that, you had a couple of missed field goals there. Boz has been dealing with some injuries throughout the year. I think he's missed 7 field goals now in the year. That's not typical Boz. And so those were points that were left on the field. There was a couple of drops in key situations that turned into field goal attempts. So those were some more points. I do think this team is going in the right direction. And, this will be an opportunity for this team to beat the Ravens and catch them at the right time. It's a night game. It was flexed. I know you love that, Mark.
Oh, yeah. It's my 12 right now. The game will be on. So it's awesome. It's like lunchtime.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to it. I think there's some hope. And, Tomlin mentioned this earlier. He's like, he talked about becoming respectable. He didn't talk about, going into the playoffs, making a run. He said, we've dug ourselves in the hole to get ourselves out to respectability. It's one game at a time. And I think that they've been accomplishing that. They went from being one of the bottom dumpsters teams, 4th in the AFC North. Not so much anymore. Last words, and then we'll put a bow on it. We'll start off with you, Nate. What are your last words before we go?
Pretty overall pleased how the second half of the season's gone. I said that's really all I wanted to see. I wanted to see growth from the young guys that are hopefully here longer term. Really kind of see the defense get back to what we all thought that they can be and they should have been, and they've done a pretty good job the second half of the season. And you look at where they were before the half mark of the year at 3-7 or 3-6, whatever I can't remember what the record was at the bye week, but looking like a top 5 pick, everything like that. And now you look at where they're at now at 7-8. They a great team? No. Are they a good team? I wouldn't really quite even put them in that category quite yet, but they're decent. And they went from pretty piss poor to decent right up here. And I think that's a great thing, especially in a type of season like this where it could have really gone any way this year. It was a whole different year that there really shouldn't have been many expectations. It was like, okay, let's just kind of see how it goes. And I think anybody should be encouraged with how they've played the second half. Think that there's encouragement offensively, there's encouragement defensively. And I think if you can have a good offseason, I mean, I think that they can find themselves up in that trajectory of being a pretty solid team and finding themselves up there and fighting in the division again and controlling their own destiny this time. So I'm still just gonna enjoy these last 2 games before the season's over. How they finish is how they finish. And there'll be a lot of excitement as well after the year in terms of what's going to happen. But you gotta be encouraged as a Steeler fan, man. And they're heading in the right direction. That's exactly where you want them to be. And I do think that there's quite a bright future here. They just got to put some other pieces together and continue to build off of that. Z, we appreciate it, man. I'll talk to you later on tonight. I appreciate your support tonight, man. Always being in the show.
Thank you
and
so
the
much.
Donations.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. And Mark, what are your last words? Let's hear them.
Pretty much like the fact that we're in this position in week 17 for a chance of the playoffs, like with this, like that's pretty good, wasn't it? For this team is pretty good. Like this is not a bad season. Like I know, I think a lot of the tankers and a lot of the Fire Tomlin crew are saying, I think their expectations kind of, they mismatch all the time. You say we suck and we're awful, but they make the playoffs, and then you move the goalposts even further and say, well, there's no point because we're going to lose the playoff game, and Tomlin never wins a playoff game. But if you don't believe in this young team even getting there, then how do you expect them to even win that game? So you can't, they contradict themselves all the time. Getting themselves out of this rut of a 2-6 start, which is pretty bad, really bad, right? And the awful play. And since the bye, we've only lost twice against 2 good opponents, the Ravens and the Bengals, which they're pretty up there too, right? If we win one of those games, Trubisky doesn't throw those picks, we're back in it. So a few things didn't go our way. But to be at this position now with 6 games to go, where if 6 things happen our way, we get the 7th seed, to me, that's not a bad thing. And a lot of people will say, well, why would you even want to watch the playoff game? They're going to get smashed. Well, you don't know that. Anything can happen. And it's not bad to give like Kenny Pickett or these rookie guys a chance at the playoffs just for the excitement and the game itself, and anything can happen. So I think if you go out and win these 2 games, see if the other 4 fall our way. If they do fall our way, fantastic. We got a chance in the playoffs. Now, I'm not saying they're going to win the Super Bowl, right? But it's like, how can you not be happy for the progression of the team where they started from this other year? I know you want the draft picks, but every single week, people are saying we want a better draft pick. You can't control that. They're getting better. They're 16 now. If they win 2 more games, they're probably around, 20 odd or something like that. If they lose the 2 games, they're probably around, top 10, maybe 11, 12, depending how it stands. There's nothing wrong with winning. I think that's we kind of like misconstrue. If there was no like draft pick, then you would want your team to win every single week, right? If there's no savior for the draft pick, you want them to go and win. This team has gotten better since the bye, and they found ways to win. If it was versus NFC South, I don't care. But they're like, I think I saw a stat just there before that their record's better than 12 teams, and they're the same as 5 teams. So they're getting better each and every single week. And if they make it, we get playoff football. Come on, how is that not fun?
Well, one thing I want to say too: the Steelers got flexed out of Sunday night several weeks ago. Now they're getting flexed in to Sunday night. And I think that's all you got to say in the sense of the trajectory of the team. And I'll take that.
Yeah, that's true. 100%. That is 100% true. I want to thank everybody in the live chat. I want to thank everybody that participated, especially those that donated to the show. Thank you so much. We'll be back on Saturday on Mark. Nate.
It's
Nathan's show.
Night.
In Hindsight, make sure you go follow and like and subscribe both Steelers Nation Australia and In Hindsight. That way you don't miss an episode. That's going to do it for us, boys. I appreciate everybody out there. Thank you so much. Steelers win. The heartbeat is still alive. The season's not over, y'all. Here we go. Peace.
Welcome to the unofficial Steelers podcast, the podcast so unofficial it doesn't have a home. Here's your host from In Hindsight, Nathan Heintz. From Steelers Nation Australia, Mark Davidson. And from State of the Steelers, Daniel J. Here we go.